Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am Brian, and that is Angela, and we are finally finishing our Star Wars
Yes,
rewatch discussion. Um,
I know. We made
Amazing
it to
one.
the end
Yeah,
before
it's
Galaxy's Edge.
yeah, just barely, but
Barely, like down to the wire. Because
yeah,
you
we
leave
will.
tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we will. Kind of towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more about Galaxy's Edge. But yeah, I fly to California tomorrow for that on Friday, so I'm very excited and feel like I have too much to do, as usually happens with this kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but today, but first, we're gonna. This one is probably gonna be a little bit longer than normal. Hi
Mhm.
D. And because we're gonna do our normal movie discussion, and then we're gonna talk a little bit overall. At least I'm going to rank the Star Wars movies. I'm not sure if Angela actually will come up with a ranking or not, but
I thought about it a couple times this week about how I wanted to rank them, and it's too hard. I don't know. I feel like I can rank them by like trios, but I can't rank them as a whole. Maybe
that's
I'll
fine.
like maybe
Yeah.
I'll do it based off of Brian's and kind of interject and disagree, but I don't know if I can do it. We'll
Yeah, that's
see.
that's fine. It's some of them are there are definitely a couple that I found very hard, and then some that I found very not hard at all. So, um,
Yes.
uh,
Okay.
all right. So, um, anything else? I guess we'll just jump into it since we'll have a lot to talk about afterwards here.
Yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
so this is Star Wars: The Last Jedi,
Yep.
Episode 8, right? Yeah. This came out just December 15th, 2017, 2 years after The Force Awakens, and 2 years ago, which means we are ready for another one in December, which is going to be Rise of
Yeah.
Skywalker. So,
Hmm.
this in the story, this happens basically right after The Force Awakens. So it's still around 34 years after the Battle of Yavin. Although the timelines definitely are a little weird. There's certainly parts that clearly happen right after it, especially the Rey and Luke stuff. And then there's some other stuff that kind of looks like it could have happened like months later. I don't know exactly how that works, but we'll talk more about that. So
Hmm.
what when you going into this movie now, what were you kind of expecting from it?
I expected to see a lot of Mark Hamill, just because he showed up at the end
Hmm.
of The Force Awakens. I was really looking forward to it, but I didn't even get to watch it till, oh my gosh, I bet it was like last year sometime. I watched it on a plane coming back, I think maybe from a work trip.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't get to see it. Oh my gosh, maybe it was even like last November. So it took
Wow.
me a long time to see
Yeah.
this movie. Um,
I get like that.
that,
If I don't see them like kind of right away, a lot of times it'll
yeah.
be months later before I see something. I do that with the Marvel movies sometimes, where if I don't see them in the theater, I won't see them for 8 months.
When I think I watched Black Panther around the same time. So I just tried to get them all done
Yeah.
then. Uh, I was telling Brian right before we started this stream, I liked it less than I thought I would. But as Brian was talking at the beginning, I think it was because of the Finn and Rose scenes.
Hmm.
We'll talk about that a little bit more. I really,
Maybe
really
if we
enjoyed
need
the
if we
Rey
need
and
some
Luke
time,
scenes.
the Finn and Rose scenes are the ones we'll skip. The
I'll,
Canobite stuff
I'll,
is the stuff we'll
I'll
skip because that is definitely the weakest section of the movie. Yeah.
That's
Um,
really what it comes down to for why I didn't enjoy it as much. But the Luke and Rey scenes I loved,
mhm.
and I loved everything. Like, just, I mean, we'll get to it in a
I
bit. But anyway,
Yeah. Well,
what about you?
like I
When
said,
did you see it?
I saw that in the theater. I think it was opening weekend. It was within a couple days after it came out.
Hmm.
Um, and I love this movie. I'll save exactly where for my rankings later, but every time there are definitely parts that I don't particularly like, but that's almost every Star Wars movie.
Hmm.
Um, and the parts that I like, I really really like. Mostly
Hmm.
all of the Ray, any scene with Ray in it, basically, I think is a home
Yeah,
run in
yeah.
this. And she's in a good portion of it. I like a lot of the Poe stuff. It's really, yeah, like you said, it's just kind of, and I like I still like Finn as a character. I think they aren't sure what to do with him exactly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I like Rose quite a bit, but I think they just kind of the storyline they sent them on was strange, but that's
Yeah.
coming later, I guess. So
Yes. Okay. So, do you just want to jump right in?
sure. Um,
Okay.
Let me get my graphic back up here. So we start with a space battle, and much like in Empire Strikes Back, the Resistance trying to flee as they are being attacked. Following the destruction of Starkiller Base, General Leia Organa leads the flight of the Resistance forces from Dakar when a First Order fleet arrives. Poe Dameron leads a costly counterattack that destroys a First Order dreadnought, and the remaining Resistance escapes into hyperspace. Rey, having traveled to Ahch-To with Chewbacca and R2-D2 aboard the Millennium Falcon, attempts to recruit Luke Skywalker to the Resistance. Disillusioned by his failure to train Kylo as a Jedi and under self-imposed exile, Luke refuses to help and says that the Jedi should end. Meanwhile, the First Order uses a device to track the Resistance and attacks them. Leia's son, Kylo Ren, hesitates to fire on the lead Resistance ship after sensing his mother's presence, but his wingmen destroy the bridge, killing most of the Resistance leaders. Leia is sucked into space, but survives by using the Force, I guess.
Yeah. The Force, the explanation for everything.
Pretty much.
I did want to mention that if you're joining us for the first time, feel free to comment with your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just not Brian and I talking back and forth. Also, tell us like where you're from. And I know that last time we had some people talking to each other in the comments, which was really cool
Yeah,
to
feel
see.
free to do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. The movie is intense right away
Yeah.
with the action, which I really, really liked. That was kind of happening a lot, very reminiscent of, I guess, A New Hope, when things just start right away. And
Yeah, well,
then,
it reminded me a lot of Empire, which I think was on, like we said, a lot with Force Awakens, where there's a lot of things that they do
yeah,
on purpose to call back. I think starting with the Resistance fleeing a planet
hmm
while under attack was on purpose. Now it's not done exactly the same way. We do see AT-ATs later, but this one was all basically a space battle. But yeah, it starts off pretty heavy space battle. Actually, Revenge of the Sith starts like that too, where you just start in space in the middle of a battle. It's a good way to start a Star Wars movie.
yeah, and it's just kind of your job to catch up and figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I
especially
don't,
because we know some of the characters, but there are some that we don't. Which is kind of weird that there are just these resistance pilots and most of them end up dying, which is why we don't know them.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like,
and
oh
you're
wait, no, who's that? Am I supposed to care about that one? Nope. Okay, bye.
Well, and you're right. It's exactly like Revenge of the Sith and how that starts out. The ship that Poe and his team are flying, this is just an offhand note. It's just really weirdly shaped. I didn't really like them. And
The
was the
bombers, you
part,
mean?
yeah,
Like the
I
stand
don't,
up one? Yeah, okay.
just like aesthetically, I didn't really like how they
Um,
looked. Um,
I didn't really think too much about the look. I like the way that they bomb, where the bottom drops and it's just in the
yeah,
spirals, all the bombs come
it's just
out.
like
Like I
tons
think
of
that
them.
that looked really neat, and I could see how that would be very effective. But
But was the part with the woman really necessary? I mean, I get it with like the necklace and then Rose
yeah,
later.
it's Rose's sister. I think it's just supposed to be an emotional anchor for Rose.
Oh,
So
okay.
um,
That's what it was. All
that's
right,
why
I
they
got
have
it.
the matching necklaces or two parts, I
That
think, of
makes sense
one
now. I watched it
necklace.
twice and I never got it.
Yeah, she says right when at I think I don't remember. At some point I'm pretty sure she says, my sister died for this or something like that. I'm pretty sure she does say it at some point. Either that or I'm totally making that up. But
No, you're probably right. I mean, they have the matching necklaces. That honestly shows how much I paid attention to the Finn and Rose scenes. Um, Carrie Fisher looks way older in this movie, even though it's been like 2 years. Again, not trivial to the movie or whatever, not crucial to the movie. But I did like the segue of "Where's Ray" done by Finn when he's like in his
oh,
Bubble Boy costume and he just like runs out. It's like, "Where's Ray?"
in
And
the
then
back to suit,
it just
whatever it is. Yeah.
moves over to that
Yeah.
scene with Luke and Ray.
Jeff in the comments asked what we thought of Poe's, your mama joke basically at the start. Um, I like a lot of the humor in this movie,
I
especially
do
Luke
too.
and Ray's. This joke has never really sat well. I think it's too much too soon. Like we know Poe's kind of a jokester, and I would have been okay if they did it like in passing. I think they focus on it like a lot to start the movie, which especially a movie that's not particularly funny. There are funny lines,
Hmm.
but
It's not a
that's
comedy.
yeah, that's the kind of joke I would expect to see with a funnier action movie like Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok. I could see starting with a joke like that. This one, it I don't know, it's just a little too much, too fast. But yeah, even watching it in the theater, I was like, oh no, is this how we're doing this? But it's not. It's not at all how they do it. But
Yeah,
it's
does
very
this set up the
strange.
whole film?
Yeah, yeah. Carrie Fisher definitely seems to be having a rougher time in this one, which of course she passed away
Hmm.
before this was released. So
Hmm.
that makes sense, which makes this uh, very, especially the scene at the end with her and Luke, makes it very emotional. Made it very emotional in the theater because she had only passed away. I don't think it was too terribly long before the movie. A couple months was all. So
Yeah.
um, that was very tough, and I really thought when she it's this section, right? Yeah, when she gets sucked out into space, I kind of thought in the theater like, oh, so this is how they're doing it, and then she just
Yeah.
kind of flies back in, and I'm like, oh, well, that was weird both ways. Now, like they're keeping her alive, and
Mm.
they do it by a superpower kind of like, which looks much
Right.
more superpowered than other Force users somehow. I don't know. It just that use of the Force just was weird to me. I don't get it.
Well, that whole part just didn't really make sense. Like, she goes into space, which, like, in space, doesn't your body, like, freeze up and, like,
Yeah, which she kind of
birth or
was. Like, I
die
think
or
she
whatever?
got all shiny looking and stuff. But yeah, I
Right?
don't. I'm not exactly sure what happens there. And I'm glad that they didn't kill her off doing it because they could have probably
Hmm.
edited
That would
it
have
in a
been it.
weird way. But I'm glad they didn't because then we wouldn't have gotten the scene with her and Luke later and stuff, which was very emotional.
When I
Um,
think that it would have ultimately made Kylo Ren even more jaded, which must mean that they're gonna bring him over or like there's going to be some good in him in the next film
mm,
because if he like I wonder.
I mean, I think there definitely is. I think he is conflicted, which is mostly what this movie is about. Um, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, it would have to be a really, really well written story for him to just kind of come back now. I think it's been too much. It's like Anakin, killing all of those children, and then at the end, after if you watch them in the order we did, where at the end of Jedi, he's just like, no, now I can be a Force ghost. I'm good again. It's like really, like I don't
What
know.
the younglings?
Yeah. But backing up a little bit now, when we first meet Luke in this movie, he tosses his old lightsaber and his father's lightsaber off a cliff, which
Yep.
is probably the most shocked I've ever been watching a Star Wars movie because I didn't see. I'm pretty sure I knew about Vader being Luke's father by the time I had actually seen Empire. So for me, this was kind of the oh what because that I you could have given me 100 guesses, and I don't think I would have gotten to that one.
No, Luke's just like done. He's like, no, not today. And Ray's just as shocked.
Yeah,
But
well, yeah,
I just I mean him drinking from what is it, the Thala siren milk,
I was
like just
saying, yeah,
milking it
yeah,
and then just
that
drinking it, like that's
that
something
that
I
beautiful
didn't need to
looking
see.
creature. Yeah, that was
Oh,
that definitely got a reaction in the theater. When he just
oh.
milked that thing and then turned and drank it, and it's all like in his beard and stuff. Like that was it. That was a comedy
Oh,
moment that I really enjoyed because it wasn't 100% supposed to be a joke, but I think they knew exactly how it would play. And it was yeah, just kind of weird and gross, and it like really set him up as this just weird hermit guy now. Um,
Brian, if we would have watched this sooner, I would have had you like grow a beard. And when you try the green milk, like
yeah. Well,
just do
that's
it just
that's
like
what I
Luke.
want in Galaxy's Edge. I want a thylacyr in a dispenser that you just that's what when you order the green milk, there's just the big cow behind them that they turn around and start milking and then hand it to you. That'd be a great way to serve it. But
Oh, that'd be so funny. Okay, let's go to some comments. Josh says, the comedy feels off. We're not watching a Lethal Weapon movie. And JL says, good luck with it being a really well written story, going back to what you were saying with Kylo
Yeah,
Ren.
which I don't agree with. I think J.J. Abrams has written some good stories. I would have preferred actually Ryan Johnson do the ninth one too, but he's getting his own trilogy, so I'm okay with
Dee said the green milk caught her off guard, and
that.
Josh says, agreed, Abrams is all about playing the hits and taking zero chances with new plots.
Yeah, he does. He does. He definitely does do a lot of that stuff. But I think even when we watched Force Awakens last week, there's more new twists on things than I think people realize. Everybody focuses on the things that are the same. Um, but but anyway, but we talked about that last week. What do you think about the Porgs? How do you feel about Porgs? Because we are introduced to them here.
Well, you know me, like when it comes to
There he is.
cute things like Ewoks, I go pretty crazy. But I mean, the Porgs, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, they're so cute. BB-8 so cute." And I'm like, "Hmm, you
Yeah.
know,
See the
they don't get a ton of screen time, honestly, for how big of a deal they are
no, which I think
in
was
merchandise
very
land."
smart. Because if they had used them a ton, like, because that's my big problem with Return of the Jedi, is that whole part with the Ewoks just drags the movie down.
Hmm.
And I like the part where they're, I like parts with the Ewoks, but we don't really need to hang out with them and have dinner and tell stories and all that stuff. So I like that they just kind of use the Porgs sparingly. I really didn't want to. The Porgs were definitely one of those things that you saw the marketing beforehand and thought, like BB-8, where I thought like, oh great, they're just trying to sell toys to kids and stuff. But then when I saw it, I was like, okay, I kind of like these guys. They're not too bad. They are kind of funny. And apparently there's a filmmaking reason that they used them too, because the island off the coast of Ireland where they shot is just riddled with puffins, and
Oh, really?
I think it's puffins. It's some sort of seabird, but and they used the porgs to they inserted the porgs over all of the puffins, so that they weren't just like earth birds sitting there.
Well, that was a good idea, actually. And I do love that they like hang out with Chewie. I think that's really adorable.
JL
I
says he hopes that there's a Chewie has a kiosk at Galaxy's Edge where he serves porg. I would I am a little disappointed that there isn't a porg on the menu. I think that would have been a fun kind of dark joke, but I think they knew that
Hi.
they couldn't do that with kids. Well, they show one roasted in the movie. It's not a
I mean, I guess
stretch.
I guess it's not completely far-fetched, but you saying like it's it's good they're not like showing having dinner. Well, I mean they're showing for dinner, porgs for dinner, like
Yeah,
they did with
yeah.
the Ewoks.
Hmm.
That got me thinking like totally magical Disney moment for me would be like walking through Galaxy's Edge holding hands with an Ewok and like that was my VIP tour guide. That would just be
That would
incredible,
be
but
would be great.
not very realistic. Should we move on to Canto Bites?
Yeah, just one last thing. Now, this when they're on Octo here is where I think some of the jokes actually get
Oh,
really
wait,
funny.
yes.
Because there's the where Luke says, where are you from, and Ray says, the nowhere, and he goes, no, really, and he goes, Jakku, and he goes, all right, that pretty much is nowhere. And then
I missed a whole paragraph. I
and
see
then
that.
she wants him to train her, and she says, I've seen your routine. You're not busy.
Yeah.
Are
Well,
all
their
like
jokes
lines
are
that are
funny.
actually they're good, solid jokes, and they fit well with the characters, which I like. Because Luke is I mean, Mark Hamill is a huge cornball. He's a great he loves just like stupid jokes and things. Like if you ever see him on interviews or Twitter or everything,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
such a ham, and they use that a little bit. They fold that a little bit into this older Luke, which I like. So
Well, even when he's like, reach out, with the force, and she
yes.
reaches her hand out, and like,
And
there's
he
like the
starts
leaf
tickling.
stick.
Yeah.
She's like, I feel it. And then he hits her with it. And that's like very like Yoda too, to like
Yes.
hit with things. I loved their interactions and their dialogue. The comedy was funny. Every scene they had together, I really, really liked. Like the two of them pretty much made the movie for me.
Yeah.
It made me just I really liked it. But I
I,
will I will read the
I
Octo
was gonna
paragraph.
say, since while we're on Octo, we might as well read the intro for it here. So.
Yeah. Encouraged by R2D2, Luke decides to train Rey as a Jedi. Rey and Kylo begin communicating through the Force, puzzling them both. After Kylo tells Rey what happened between him and Luke that caused him to choose the dark side, Luke confesses that he momentarily contemplated killing Kylo upon sensing that Snoke was corrupting him. This prompted Kylo to destroy Luke's new Jedi Order. Convinced that Kylo can be redeemed, Rey leaves Octo. Luke prepares to burn the Jedi library but hesitates. Yoda's spirit appears and destroys the library, saying Rey has all she needs to learn and encouraging Luke to learn from his failure. Okay.
Yeah, this whole section I think is pretty much fantastic, with the exception of the Maz Kanata scene. I think it reminds me very much of a cutscene in a video game where somebody just shows up and says, "Okay, here's your mission. You have to go to this planet, find this person, do that." You like
Mm-hmm.
that? I think is a strange use of a character that I really liked in The Force Awakens. I don't know if they couldn't get Lupita Nyong'o for very long, or just needed somebody to deliver this information, and we're like, okay, let's use somebody we know already. Um, but everything else in this on Octo, and we you might notice we're skipping ahead a little bit because they kind of
Yeah.
they kind of cut between Octo and Canto Bite a lot,
Yeah, we're
so we're
just
just
doing the
yeah.
Octo stuff.
So, um, but I don't. What do you think? I know you said you like a lot of the Luke Ray stuff. I assume that. What do you think? Here is a question for you. What do you think about the Ray Kylo Ren Force Skyping?
Um, I was very unprepared to see Kylo Ren shirtless,
We all were. Yes.
and I was just like, "Oh, hi." Um, so I
Although
was like,
another good
"Okay."
joke when Ray just kind of says, "Could do you have a towel or something?" Like,
Well, exactly. It's like they're trying to like set up a thirst trap for the female audience, and Ray just like calls them out on
mhm.
it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good. Um, but I had thoughts in my mind, and I forgot. I was gonna say this about Daisy Ridley though. She works so well with all of the original actors,
hmm
and it's so the chemistry is so natural with Mark Hamill, Carrie
Yes.
Fisher, Harrison Ford.
hmm
It's just like she just blends in and just fits in so organically, and it's so fun to watch. And and oh, I remember the other thing I was going to say. The Maz setup, like you said, you described it perfectly. It is 100% a cutscene from a video game. It's like they had extra footage or something, or they had her for an
Yeah.
extra day, and they're like, "Oh, how can we use her?" Oh, I know. So
hmm
yeah, I completely agreed. Um,
It's like they
and
did a phone call and they're like, "Here, Lupita, read these lines for us."
No, that's like what it was. As far as Yoda destroying the temple, at first I'm like, why? Like this seems so unnecessary. But like because Luke couldn't do it and Yoda did, like that was a pretty baller move looking back at
Yeah,
it.
and you also wonder. I mean, with Master Yoda, you never know. You do wonder because we find out at the end that Rey has already taken the books. Um, so you do kind of wonder whether Yoda knew that and knew he was just destroying the tree, basically. But
Yeah.
I love. I mean, well, going back to the Kylo Ray. Yeah, I keep wanting to say Kylo Ren Ray, but it comes out as Kylo Ray, which kind of works anyway.
Same
But
thing.
going back to that, like that was one that like watching the movie. I love the scenes together. I love the idea of them being
Yeah.
like overly connected, kind of. But I thought the way they shot it was strange. Now I don't know how you really could do it. But then, as we mentioned, watching Empire Strikes Back, that's almost exactly the way they shot when Luke and Vader were kind of forced speaking to each other right after their
Hmm.
fight. It doesn't happen nearly as much, obviously, but I wonder if Ryan Johnson kind of got the technique from there a little bit.
Yeah.
The Yoda, I was so happy to see Yoda puppet. He it looks real good. It's not like the at the story. I don't think we even really told when we did the Phantom Menace that in the original cut of that movie was the puppet Yoda, and then they it looked so bad that they ended up replacing it with a CGI. So if you watch like a Blu-ray version or later, it's a CGI Yoda. But in this, they got the lighting right and everything, and it actually it looks a lot like Empire Strikes Back. The facial expressions are great. Frank Oz is
Hmm.
back doing the voice, who
Hmm.
of course is amazing, and they do it more as that kind of kooky, crazy Yoda that we
Yeah.
met in Empire, which I love. I love his little giggle after he burns the tree down. is very funny. It's very very Yoda to me. Like that's it's more of the Yoda I remember from growing up than the one that
Yeah.
I saw in the prequels.
The Kylo Ray scenes, I will say that it was kind of weird at first, but you wrote in the notes, and I wanted to bring this up. Like you can really sense their confusion and their anxiety. Like what is happening? Like, am I doing this? Are you doing this? And neither of them get it.
Hmm.
And they don't really know if they should trust each
Yeah,
other, but then slowly they start to bond, which is
yeah,
really weird and unexpected.
yeah.
And you can tell it freaks Luke out too.
Oh yeah, well yeah, of course it would.
Yeah.
I think it
Well, duh.
freaks. I honestly think it freaks everybody out. I think both Rey
Yeah.
and Kylo are not. I don't think either one of them wanted to form a connection with each other.
Mm-mm.
Rey because she thinks Kylo's a monster, and
Mhm.
Kylo because he thinks he's a monster and doesn't want to
Yeah.
admit that he actually has some good. Yeah, Jeff here in the comments is pointing out something that a lot of people have had a problem with. My brother included. We've talked about this a lot with Luke's kind of transformation between Return of the Jedi and this, where he goes from being a very optimistic, hopeful person and trying to save Vader and risking his life to see the good in him and turn him to being someone who is, at least even momentarily thinking about murdering a child to stop him from becoming a Sith, and who completely abandons the Force. I personally, and it might just be, honestly, it might be a little bit of my age. I really, I get it. 30 years can change a person a lot. So I think, I'm only 40 now, but I know even now compared to 20 years ago, I'm much less optimistic about things than I used to be. I understand how the world works better, which is unfortunately not a great thing all the time. But so I think I get it a little bit more sometimes than some people would. Um, I can see how you know the failings of the past Jedi, and he mentions the failings of the Jedi's we saw in the prequel, how the Jedi's were their most powerful and still let Palpatine rise up within them, and let them turn Anakin and all that, and he knows exactly what happened. He obviously knows the history now,
Mhm.
where he didn't then, and he sees it happening again in Kylo, and knows that it partially is his fault, that he made the exact same mistake that his forefather Jedi's made, in that he let a Sith be born right under his nose, and thinks it's better to just stop altogether than risk
Mhm.
having more Sith be born. I get it. I understand completely why people wouldn't. It is pretty drastic, and I think a lot of people went into the movie wanting to see the kind of old hero Luke, and were disappointed they didn't get that. So I get it. I mean, and I think that's a big division among people who really like this movie and don't, is that one right there. So I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's just you feel how you feel.
Mhm.
What do you think? How do you like Luke's transformation?
I didn't mind it. I didn't have an issue with it. I mean, I do understand Jeff's perspective because he kind of was that eternal optimist
Hmm.
and there's good in everyone. Uh, but I mean, yeah, it's when stuff like that happens and over the years, I mean, with everything that happened, you see a lot of death, a lot of bad things that happened, and I think that that really can affect a person over time. So, yeah, I see both sides of it. I didn't mind the character transformation, especially because, old crotchety Luke is really funny.
He is.
So
He
I
is
can
pretty
look
good.
past it. I just found him really amusing. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, there's so many great. I quoted a bunch of lines in here too. This
Yeah,
this
that's
this
I was
whole
just
movie
looking
is
over.
this whole movie is I really like the dialogue in most of this movie actually. So, which is a big. I'm big on dialogue and quotable lines and things. So
Hmm.
I think that's part of why I like this so much. Um, but okay, so we go to Canto Bight and then into Snoke's ship here. I kind of mashed these
Yep.
two together because I
So
don't
this
know
is
that we
like
have
the
a.
Rosen.
Yeah,
Finn stuff.
because I don't know that
Yeah,
we are going to have a ton to say about Canto Bight
yeah.
anyway. So Poe entrusts Finn, Mechanic, Rose Tico, and BB-8 with a secret mission to find someone who can disable the First Order's tracking device, which Maz Kanata says they can find on Canto Bight. They meet the hacker DJ and escape the city with the help of some stable hand children and riding animals that they set free. Finn and Rose infiltrate Snoke's ship, but are captured by Captain Phasma. Meanwhile, new Resistance leader Vice Admiral Holdo intends to evacuate the remaining Resistance members to an abandoned base on Crate. In a bargain for his freedom, DJ reveals the Resistance's plan to the First Order, and the evacuation transports are slowly destroyed. Kylo brings Rey to Snoke, who says he facilitated the connection between her and Kylo as part of a plan to destroy Luke. Ordered to kill Rey, Kylo instead kills Snoke, very surprising there as well, and defeats his guards alongside Rey. Rey hopes that Kylo has abandoned the dark side, but he instead asks her to rule the galaxy with him. Refusing, she and Kylo battle using the Force to obtain Anakin's lightsaber, splitting it in two. Holdo sacrifices herself by ramming into Snoke's flagship at light speed, crippling it as Rey escapes and Kylo declares himself supreme leader. BB-8 frees Finn and Rose. They defeat Phasma and join the survivors on Crate. Whew.
All right, looking at the comments, SG agrees with Jeff, and D does too. I agree, that makes no sense.
It's
JL
okay.
says they
Everybody
turned
can
the
be wrong. That's fine. I'm kidding.
stop. They turned the
Uh,
archetype of good for an entire generation into a murdering coward.
well, he
And
didn't
D said,
actually
I'm not.
murder anyone.
Well, you are the coward part. I guess I do say,
The
I do
coward,
see.
I totally get, yeah. But
Yeah.
I
If
don't
I'm not
agree that he's a
mistaken,
murderer.
no, he technically
I
didn't
mean, he
kill him.
is because he killed a ton of people in the first three movies. But, you know.
But so was everyone else then.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill was not happy about the character development.
Uh,
Do you know anything about that?
he said he wasn't, when he first got the script, he was very annoyed about the way the character went. In later interviews, he said that he has grown to understand it and really like the way it went. I'm never sure with that whether that's just for PR purposes or whether he actually believes that. I mean,
Yeah.
I believe that he didn't like it at first, because why would he say that if it wasn't true? The part
Right.
where he came around on it, I don't know. That is what he's saying now, but like I said, he might just be saying that because the studio said, "Hey, can you not?" like, so who
But
knows?
you'd think
But
he could have just avoided the question if he really didn't
yeah,
like the character development.
I don't know. I mean, he's not the first. He's not the first. I mean, Han Solo has wanted to. Harrison Ford has wanted Han Solo to die for like 3 straight movies. So, he's
Yeah,
not the first
made that
person
pretty
that
clear.
hasn't liked where his character's gone.
Yeah. Okay. Rose, I thought
JL
did
is
not make a
very, very
good.
against the. This is like talking to my brother again, because JL is very against the all the all the Luke Skywalker stuff in this movie.
Well, and for me, see, Mark Hamill was not my favorite actor.
No,
I mean, it's not like
mine
he's a bad
either.
actor. He's just not Luke was not my favorite
Hmm.
person in the prequels, or not the prequels, the
The
original
original trilogy, yeah.
trio,
Hmm.
original trilogy. That's what I'm thinking. So I don't have, I guess, much emotion, in it.
Yeah.
I had other favorite
And
characters.
maybe that might be part of it with me too. Like Luke was never. I always liked Luke a lot, of course, but he was never. I was always a Han Solo person.
Yeah.
So, and Han Solo kind of stayed the same. So I guess that's why it doesn't annoy me as much. Um, but
I think if he would have changed more, if Han Solo would have changed more, I would have been a little more affected. But
yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's
Luke did.
entirely possible.
And I
And
thought that Luke was really whiny too. And I think because he's maybe, well, I guess
especially
he's
in the
whiny a different way now.
especially in the beginning, he was. Yeah, and some of that was the character. Some of it was Mark Hamill being very, very young and not
Yeah.
really growing into his eye. He's become a very, very good actor over the years. He
Hmm.
does a ton of voice stuff, but in this
Yeah.
he's fantastic. So I think this definitely shows off his skill more than it would have if he was just Savior Luke. Plus, I think if it was
For
Savior
sure.
Luke, we wouldn't have had anything for Rey to do. I think part of the idea with this trilogy is to pass along the story to a new generation. And if Luke just came in and saved everybody, then it would have just been Luke's story again.
Right.
which I don't think they wanted to do. Mark Hamill might have wanted to do that. I sure would if I was an actor. um,
Yeah.
but but anyway,
He
so
kind of did at the end, but
well,
okay,
of
we
course
got to
he,
move on.
yeah, he's still a hero in the end, you know.
We gotta talk about Rose and Finn and get that out of the way
All
because
right.
it's
Yeah, I didn't really.
12:06.
Like I said, I am a huge defender of this movie. This scene, there are parts of it I get. I like that we get to see, the 1%. Basically, we get to see a recreational planet, kind of, which we haven't really seen before.
Hmm.
I enjoy that it's people that sell weapons to both sides, that are, that it's on the backs of slaves, all that stuff. I think is interesting storytelling. But I would have almost rather see that in a standalone movie, like Rogue One style movie, rather than
Yeah.
in this movie. I think they could have done this much quicker and been better for it.
Well, no, this is the part of the movie that brings it down in ranking for me because it just like this whole plan between Rose and Finn and the code breaker. It's just to me a way to make the movie longer, and I thought it was really unnecessary. I really like Rose as a character, and I love Finn as a character,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if it's like why is she important, I guess, other than being a
Well,
mechanic? Is it just because of her mission with that her and Finn were on?
yeah, I
Uh,
think they just needed another. Han Solo wasn't important until he was. He was so.
yeah.
I think it's just they wanted another character to do the side mission with Finn, and so she's a mechanic who understands how stuff works, I guess. So they needed her to actually kill the beacon eventually, but
Okay,
which they
that
don't
makes
do. So
yeah. So so no, I mean, like I said, I really like her as a character. I think she's a good actor, but I didn't get the point of like her character, I guess. And then the whole plan is just like every time they had their scene, I was like, okay, I'm bored again.
it,
But
it, it
and it
just
just made the movie feel
it
long.
just went too long. I think is the
It
big problem.
did.
I don't think if it had been cut in half, if instead of breaking out of the jail and running and riding the things and having the ship blown up and all that stuff, if they had
Yeah.
just cut it to where they got thrown in jail, met DJ, broke out, and then flew away, I think it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
I
there was
I
too
think
many things that happened there that really weren't that interesting.
when I feel bad because the actor that played Rose got so much flack and she
Yeah, well,
on social
people are
media
terrible, so
they
yeah.
were so terrible and they were so mean.
Hmm.
And that's not how I feel about her at all. It's
No,
just
I
like
like her. It just
I do
it's not her.
too.
It's just this storyline wasn't great.
Yeah, the
Um,
storyline just wasn't necessary. I felt like she could have been utilized a little differently. And especially Finn. Finn is not being used the way I think he should be in the movies.
no,
I feel like he's not being given very important stuff to
well,
do. It's all like
we talked about it
secondary
last
things.
time that originally Poe was supposed to die fairly early in the movie, and I think there's a lot of suspicion that maybe Poe is doing some of the stuff that Finn was supposed to do. Not necessarily in this movie. I don't think. I don't think Finn would have fit in with Finn's character to be the kind of danger, reckless flyboy that thinks he's right all the time. I don't think that's Finn,
Yeah.
but I think they would have maybe found more interesting things to do with Finn if they didn't also have to do the Poe stuff. Um,
Well, and it seems
but
like Finn is trying to develop and trying to evolve, but I mean, it's like he still doesn't really know what he's doing. Like at the end, when he's like trying to sacrifice himself, it's like, okay, it's kind of not a smart thing to do.
yeah, well,
And then,
and Rose
Rose
and
saves
Rose is the
him.
one that sees it. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, D says the actor who played Finn got gypped. I believe. I think I agree with that for sure. Um,
Hopefully he gets more of a crucial role in the last film. Otherwise,
I
that'd
hope
just be
so.
really
He
unfortunate
looks real
for
good.
him.
He has a whole new look that I really dig in the trailer. But um, yeah, before we get into the Snoke stuff, Jeff here says that other thing with this movie was that there's a lot of interesting story threads from Force Awakens that were abandoned, like Snoke, Rey's parents, the Knights of Ren. I'm gonna disagree with that too. I think Knights of Ren, I think is could be very interesting, and we still might get to that. Snoke and Rey's parents, I don't think was interesting at all, and I think cutting it out was a really good storytelling choice. I don't think the Emperor was ever particularly interesting, and I don't think Snoke was unless we were going to get his whole backstory, which we don't have time for in one movie. Um, I don't think there was anything to Snoke other than being a big bad guy, which I think Kylo Ren is a much more interesting bad guy.
Hmm.
And now he's the big bad, so I like that. And Rey's parents, I just didn't. Everybody's related in these stupid movies, and it starts to really bother me that like you can't be a Force user unless you're descended from another Force user or something. I think I really hope that um, I really hope that they don't backtrack on that and make Rey
Right.
be somebody's
Like
kid.
a
Um,
sister, brother, or
I
whatever.
mean, when we first met Luke, he was nobody. We didn't know
Hmm.
for 1 3/4 of a movie that he was related to Darth Vader. We just thought he was
Hmm.
a farm boy who had this superpower and could destroy the bad guys. And I think Rey is the same way. And I don't think she needs to be Obi-Wan's daughter or something crazy like that. So um, but yeah, and
JL
this is where we're coming up here on where we find out a lot about that. So go ahead. Sorry.
JL agrees with us. No, it's okay. As far as the actor of Rose is not the problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's he said this is or I assume this is a running theme in all the movies is that the actor's never the problem. Like with Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor. I would
Natalie
even say
Portman
Hayden
might have been some of
Christensen.
the problem.
Well,
um,
but I mean, they're all actors that have been in other
oh yeah,
films
no,
that
I
you've
think Natalie
seen and they're
Portman
good.
is a very
But like
good
you said,
actress,
she
but
was young at the time.
and
Um,
she wasn't. She didn't really make any choices in it. She was just kind of like, I'm just going to read these lines and go home.
right.
I think was kind
But
of, which I don't blame her
it's
for. If
the
I had read that
script.
script, I would have probably been like that too. But where Ewan
But it
McGregor,
is
I
the
think
script and the
yeah,
storyline.
yeah.
He tried though, and
He definitely tried, and
Liam Neeson.
Hayden Christensen, I think tried. I think there was just not a lot he could do with what he
Yeah,
had. So, um, and yeah,
I want
Rose
to
is the
know.
same way. I think she's fine, and I think Rose had actually Rose has possibly my favorite line in this entire movie. That's in the next section, but
Ectoplasmic, I do want to know what made you so upset during and after the film. Um, and then Joshua said, disappointed to see Snoke struck down so easy. Yes, I do want to talk about that.
mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'm just really surprised that as basically a Sith Lord, he wouldn't be able to anticipate that attack more specifically. Like he knew
Well,
that
he
that it
knew.
was coming
Yeah, he just misread.
towards his enemy,
Yeah,
but
he just
you know,
misread what Kylo's intentions were. He knew exactly what he was doing. He just
yeah,
he just he just fainted him a little bit. Um,
right.
but yeah, I well maybe it's the name, but I do agree with Brian here that I like that they made Luke an actual human with failures and
Hmm.
one of Yoda's great lines is the greatest teacher of failure is the greatest teacher of failure. I can't. My throat's we've been talking too much to do Yoda voice right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Blame the talking.
Um, but yeah, so on the Snoke stuff, yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was going to end up that Snoke was going to be the one that they had to defeat at the end. Um, I like I said, I don't mind it at all because there were a lot of theories about who Snoke really was he somebody from the past? Because nobody can be a new character; they all have to be
Mhm.
somebody from the past or the child of
Yeah,
somebody from the past.
always.
I just didn't buy into any of that. Like I didn't really care who Snoke was. We didn't know who the Emperor. We still don't. I mean, we had 3 full movies about the rise of the Emperor. We still don't know who he was before he became a senator. Or how he discovered he had the Force. Like it I don't think we need to know the backstory of every character in in the movie. And like I said, I think Kylo we do know more about, and I think he's a fascinating character. So I'm
Hmm.
kind of glad that they just got Snoke out of the way. And the scene right after of the fight with the Praetorian Guards is one of the most beautiful sequences in a Star Wars movie. This
Yeah.
one that the GIF is playing below here of that the kind of slow motion zoom out and turn is a fantastic shot. And that whole fight scene is really cool. So, what do you think about from a story perspective? I know it was a shocking move, but from a story perspective, how did you like them offing Snoke?
I thought it was really, I mean, I thought it was unexpected. I thought it was really cool when they just kind of both look at each other and then they just go to it with the fight scene.
Yeah,
I thought the fight scene was really, really cool. I like that and how they kind of worked together. So it just showed that that kind of bonding time during their like weird Skype calls when he was shirtless, they did actually
yes,
bond throughout that time.
yeah.
And so I don't know, seeing like the light and the dark work together, something about that was just like a little touching, I guess. I really enjoyed it.
Especially
Um,
because they basically separate again, kind of at the end. That they
yeah,
try to. They're both are kind of like, oh, cool, they joined my side, and then they're like, oh, crap, no.
I know, and you can tell that they both want to make it work,
Yeah,
and you know that it's not possible, which also is something really tragic about
it
that
is.
too.
It's a very sad story.
It
Um,
is.
which a lot of I mean, Star Wars is can be very tragic at times. I mean, that's Empire Strikes Back. As a lot of people say is the best one, and it is an extremely tragic movie.
There's some weird almost relationships in this film, like Kylo and Ren. Yeah, or
Ray,
Ray, sorry.
yeah, I know it's hard to
Kylo and Ren.
it's hard to do that.
Kylo and Ray, Ray and Finn, Finn and Rose, and you're never sure, like, are any of them romantic or platonic? Like with these films, it's very strange in that way. I noticed.
Yeah.
So, and that's just, I guess, an observation of mine.
I actually really like towards the end of this movie the relationship too with Hux and Kylo, where I like that Hux is
Yeah,
about to shoot Kylo when he's on the ground until he wakes up and then he's like, oh,
it's like I
um,
wasn't going to do it.
but I think because Hux basically was kind of. I don't know if he was necessarily in charge of Kylo Ren, but they were at least kind of equals under Snoke. And
Hmm.
now that Kylo's in charge, and I think Hux seems to know that he's unstable, and is just
Yeah,
like, oh crap, I got to take my orders from this guy or he'll kill me. Like
I
is a
know.
very is an interesting dynamic that I hope they play with a little bit in the next movie because not that I want it to be a focus, but the dynamic between them as bad guys, but also like humans with their
Hmm.
own thirst for power and opinions
Yep.
is an interesting thing that we haven't seen much in the original movies and even the prequels. The bad
Hmm.
guys always had a very clear order of who
Yep.
was in charge. It's interesting to see a little bit of a disagreement, especially when one has a superpower and the other doesn't. So
Well, and I think his instability will ultimately be his demise one way or another.
presumably, yeah.
Either he's going to leave the dark side and be like, I've had enough, or he's just going to die because he's going to make a mistake from his temper tantrums, freaking out too much,
Or
going to
he's
go
going to
overboard
have
in some way.
he's going to have a crisis of faith and sacrifice himself to save Ray or somebody thing like
Mhm.
that. I could see something like that happening at the end where you're kind of like, well, wait, was he a good guy? um,
Right.
you know,
You're like, but he did all this bad stuff.
yeah.
I can't take Hux seriously
Oh
because he
no,
just like a shorter version of my brother. If you go to our YouTube channel, I've done a couple videos with him. I don't know, every time I look at him, I just see my brother. So I can't take him seriously, but I do like him as a character a lot. And he does have a little bit of influence on Kylo Ren, like, at the end, he does have the ability to like make him, stop doing things like with the shooting,
yeah.
went a little
He
overboard.
tries anyway, and then kind of gets
Yeah.
choked or thrown around. But he does try.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
little influence there.
but and how tall is your brother? Because Domhnall Gleeson is 6'1". So
My brother is 6'5".
wow, I didn't realize.
I
I knew
my
he looked
my
tall in
dad's
the
six
video, but it's
six.
hard to tell. But wow,
Yeah,
that
no,
is
all my
tall.
brothers are tall. Yeah,
Um,
I got the short end of the stick.
but yeah, and I mean, even not comparing him to your brother, it is hard to take Hux seriously. But I think that's also the point. I think he is kind of a
Yeah.
ridiculous. He is a loudmouth. Who thinks he's very, very important, and you can kind of see the even the people under him that are kind of like when he screams orders, like there's quite
Yeah.
a few knowing looks by extras that I think are done on purpose. Either that or it's just the extra
Yeah.
going, dude, you're overdoing it, please stop. um
Well,
But
you can just, it just seems like he got to where he's at, like on accident or
on
by
attitude, I
being,
think he's just
yeah,
it's just he's faking it until he made it. Basically, I think
by
this
like
is the
backstabbing maybe.
that's always the impression I got from him is that he just told everybody how important he was until they finally just were like, okay, I guess I don't know.
Maybe I should start doing that.
Yeah.
Then I'd be hated like Huxes.
All right, let's get to this last section on crate here. Where
All
is my
right.
plot
That
summary?
would
There we go.
be that'd be me. All right. When the first order arrives, Poe, Finn, and Rose attack with old speeders. Rey and Chewbacca draw TIE fighters away in the Falcon, while Rose diverts Finn from attacking the enemy siege cannon, which subsequently penetrates the Resistance fortress. Luke appears and confronts the First Order to enable the surviving Resistance to escape. Kylo unsuccessfully orders the First Order's forces to fire on Luke. He then engages Luke in a lightsaber duel. Upon striking Luke, Kylo realizes he has been fighting a force projection. Rey helps the remaining resistance escape on the Falcon. Luke then dies peacefully on Octo, becoming one with the Force. Rey and Leia sense his death, and Leia tells her that the resistance can still rise again. At Canto Bight, one of the stable hand children moves a broom with the Force and gazes into space.
Yeah. So what do you what were your feelings on the force projection here? How do you like that as a
I liked it. It was a good, like, I didn't see it coming. And when Kylo was like, shoot him, I'm like, how did he survive this?
it,
Like, I just didn't see it coming at all.
mhm.
And then,
No, I
lightsaber
didn't either.
battle, everything. I thought it was really cool idea.
Yeah,
Well done.
I'm not, it's one of those things and well there's two things in this or actually I guess the last one was in the last section. Where Holdo destroys Snoke's ship via hyperspace and then Luke's force projection, both of which that I'm kind of like if I think about it too hard, I'm just like I don't know, I don't get it, but from a storytelling perspective, I think they're both beautiful. Actually, the Holdo destroying the ship when the sound all drops out
Hmm.
and then comes back in on the explosion is amazing. In the theater, it was like breathtaking to watch.
Yeah, that was really
And
cool.
the same with the four. There was like audible cheers during a couple times during this Luke fight. Where he gets all the lasers and then kind of does the shoulder brush, which was right on the borderline of a little too goofy for me,
Mhm.
but I get it. And then yeah, when you realize that he was still on Octo, there was like audible cheering in the theater
Yeah.
I was in. It's great. You see Luke finally admits that he can't save everyone. Kylo is just it's too hard. He's done too much to save. Which I can personally rationalize because when he saved his father, he didn't know all the stuff that his father has done. I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but so he's not really necessarily trying to save him, but he can't kill him either because he's just a force projection. So he's just basically distracting him. Um, and Kylo is just unhinged. I mean, he goes ape when he sees Luke and can't kill him and everything. It's crazy. It's so good.
I mean, when I really think about it, doesn't he like well, I don't think, does he actually touch Leia? He hands her
He
something,
hands her the dice
which
from
like I mean, that's when it like blurs the
which
line with
well
force
those
projection.
later because Kylo finds those and then they disappear in Kylo's hands. So presumably, like when
Mm,
when when Luke dies, so presumably they were just a force projection as well. But yeah, I guess
okay.
you can touch people with the force because he does. He touches Leia because I was
Yeah,
after the first time I saw that. I watched more closely then because I'm like, well, does he just
right.
never touch him? But I'm like, oh no, he clearly
That's
touches
what I
her.
was
Like,
wondering. I thought he like touched her or kissed her or something.
so I guess can become like physical enough, but it obviously requires like huge efforts. So, um, yeah, Effie here says that about the crate, the red salt planet, which was a beautiful choice because it just looked so cool with the ships cutting the lines through the planet and everything. Um, and then the Volptics, the crystal foxes, are very cool. I just love the little jingling that they keep every time they run by. You just hear little tinkles. Um,
I
is
felt really bad for for all of the pilots having, well, I guess Finn and Rose pilots, but having to, use those
Yeah, the
those
junk.
speeders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and it's
was think
like, their feet are going through them, and
I do remember
they're
thinking
just
that,
wrecked.
like, how few pilots do they have left? Because if they're pulling Finn and Rose in there, because,
Right.
but but I do. But anyway, I mentioned Rose has one of my favorite lines, if not my favorite one in this movie, which is after she saves Finn and he asks her why, and she says, "That's how we're going to win, not fighting what we hate, but by saving what we love." I think is
Hmm.
a beautiful sentiment that
Hmm.
the internet does not really go, fall in line with, but.
Yeah.
Um,
Eh, but it was a nice line. Another beautiful thing that I loved is when well, not Mark Hamill, but when Luke dies, you
mhm.
see that
Uh,
final sunset going back to,
it's
the
heartbreaking. The
Tatooine
double
one.
sun and the Luke swing and the yeah,
It's
and
such a good
it
tribute
is.
back to that first
It was,
scene,
and I
or
mean,
that first movie.
this whole section was just a tour de force by Mark Hamill and Luke. The goodbye to Leia, and
Hmm.
his apology, like that. Both of them played that so well, and then his with Kylo. I love his speech when when I don't remember it exactly right now, but Kylo says something about like, oh, when once I kill you, the Jedi will be done, and he says,
Hmm.
no, this the Force is not about the Jedi and everything, and I am not the last Jedi. And then it cuts
Hmm.
immediately to Rey lifting all the rocks and everything. I think is a really really strong image. Um,
Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
everyone's amazed with her, and she's just as
yeah,
surprised
and
that
she's like,
she did
oh, I
that.
don't know, I
She's
lifted
like, I did
rocks.
this.
Well, even when she
Yeah.
says, about because there's a line earlier that I believe Luke says something like, "Oh, the Force, it's not just lifting rocks or whatever," and or it is just lifting rocks. I honestly don't remember at the moment, but she says it right. She kind of just mutters under her breath, "Lifting rocks." Like, hey, that is a thing I can do, right? Like,
Yeah, I know.
but yeah, this whole ending I find kind of optimistic considering that the
Yeah.
rebellion is down to like I don't know 12 people
Yep.
and Luke Skywalker dies at the end. Like it's fairly hopeful, more
It
so
is.
than like Empire Strikes Back was at the end.
Yeah, I think that it sets up the next movie really nicely, and it makes you really look forward to it too. I'm
I
more
feel that
excited
way. Yeah,
for
I know
this
not
next
everybody thinks
film.
that, but yeah, I also
I
feel that way.
do.
Um,
Yeah.
I now I don't the very very end where with the kid and the broom and all that stuff. Like I I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I feel like it almost should have been a post credit scene. Like it didn't seem like it felt like the movie should have ended with them getting on the Millennium Falcon and or being on the Falcon where Leia says, like the resistance has all it needs or whatever exactly she says. Like
Yeah.
it should have ended. I feel like it should have ended there and then like cut in like a mid credit scene with like the kids on Canto Bite or
It
something.
almost seems like a third movie ending scene. Like the
Yeah,
fact that there are kids
yeah.
showing the Force,
That the
and so
story's
there are
not
going to be
over.
more,
Yeah,
yeah, there are going to be more Jedis in the future, kind of thing.
yeah. Which I mean, I again, it's a lot of this movie is kind of is about well, I mean, a lot of the series, but this movie I think really focuses on the it doesn't matter if you're a Jedi, like, you can, and anyone can be a hero. Anyone, there are Force users everywhere. One of
Mhm.
the other lines I had quoted back up here was um, Luke saying that to say that the light dies without the Jedi is vanity.
Mhm.
Basically saying that it doesn't matter if you're a Jedi, like the Force is there. It's not
Mhm.
going away because the Jedi Order goes away, which I think is a lot of the theme of this movie is that like you know it can come from any resistance comes from everyone if who wants to, and I think that's what the button was, but I just don't think it needed that button on it necessarily.
No, I agree. But now we
All right,
finished talking about the film. Now we
yeah.
get to rank them.
All right, so I
Okay.
guess I will start ranking because you don't have a ranking.
Okay.
Um, all right, I'll go from the bottom of the top. So, and this is just kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. I can, I might change these at literally any time. Um,
Just
so,
today.
um, um, Attack of the Clones is my least favorite. Star Wars movie.
Okay.
I just cannot stand the dialogue in that movie. It's very funny. I actually watched that one a little bit more than I watched Phantom Menace because there are some really good parts and some very amusing parts, but there's a lot that just annoys me about that. Phantom Menace would be my I get what are we ranking 10 movies? So my ninth place movie. Um,
Okay.
same thing. I really like parts of that movie, but Jake Lloyd, poor kid, just he had some bad material to work with. Um, then I think I'm going to go Revenge of the Sith at number eight. So the prequels are, are rounding out the bottom.
All right.
Not probably not super surprising. I think it's the best of the prequels. It's the most entertaining, at least. Um, next, I'm gonna go Solo. I really want to like Solo, and I just can't get into it. I think it's a well-made movie, but I don't know. It's just tying it to Han Solo doesn't really do anything for me. I think if it was just about some other character that wasn't Han Solo, if it was about Lando Calrissian, I think it would have been really good. Um, and then let's see, where are we? I think I am going to go. I'm between two here. One of which will probably surprise people, but I'm gonna say Rogue One goes here. A lot of people love Rogue One. I just same thing. It's just never really sunk in with me. Um, again, I think it's a really, really well made movie. But this is my. I should explain that this is my list of my favorites, not necessarily the ones I think are the best, because that is probably a different list. Rogue One, I think, would rank higher up that. I think it's a really good movie, just not. It's just for some reason it's never connected with me. Then I'm gonna go Return of the Jedi. I like Return of the Jedi a lot. It was one of the first ones I saw, obviously, but that middle part with the Ewoks, it really really drags, and the end is fantastic. But I'm not sure that it's better. Then so what is that? That's what, six? Yeah, so four left.
One, two,
Okay.
three, four, five, six. Yep.
So number four, Force Awakens, which is just a very fun movie. I always like it better than I think I do. Every time I watch it, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't remember liking it this much. None of these movies are really perfect. There are parts that I don't like about all of them. And then now I have another tough choice because this is where it's going. I'm going to put The Last Jedi at number three, even though I kind of want to put it at number two. Um, but I love this movie. It's like all of them. It's not perfect. The middle sections of Star Wars movies tend to get real rough. Um, and that's no exception with the Canobite stuff here. But I think what is strong is really really strong in this movie. Just like in my number two is just Empire Strikes Back. The middle section of that it slows down a lot, but it's a fantastic movie. My number one was and always probably will be the original Star Wars. I think it is the one that flows the best, and it's always my favorite one. So that's number one always.
All right. Is that 10?
Hmm.
Okay. I made my list.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So it goes from bottom to top. Phantom Menace. I mean, it just was so long. Like there's
It's
just an
yeah.
hour and it's just boring. Attack of the Clones.
See, I thought that might be your favorite of the prequels, so I'm a little surprised there.
Um, the reason it wasn't is because Revenge of the Sith just was a lot better than I remember it
Yeah,
being.
same.
I really, really liked it. So that's why.
Mhm.
Then Solo.
I thought about doing that too, actually, putting that there. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Solo was pretty good, but I don't know. It just wasn't as good as the other ones.
No, and that's
Um,
and any of these movies I would choose to watch over a lot of other movies. So you know.
now this one, so this could go either in the fourth or the sixth place are like
Hmm.
kind of interchangeable. I don't know which one I want to do. But anyway, I have Rogue One, then I have Empire,
Hmm.
because
Okay.
again, that just gets a
Yeah,
little slow
you
at
didn't
some
love
points.
Empire that
I
much when we
didn't. I
rewatched it.
didn't.
Yeah.
Just get slow. Then I have Last Jedi. But
Hmm.
again, fourth and sixth with Last Jedi and Rogue One, I feel like those could kind of switch spots,
Hmm.
depending on how I feel. Then I have Force Awakens. then I have New Hope, and then I have Return of the Jedi. And the
Hmm.
reason I have Return of the Jedi first is
Ewoks.
because I watched it first. I,
Yeah.
I just cut
Oh
my
yeah.
teeth on it.
Hmm.
So I think the nostalgia's there. I've watched it the most. It's the one that like I feel like you could point out any scene, I can tell you exactly what happens. It's like in my blood, you know? So that's why that's my number one.
Yeah.
But I
No,
do
that's
want to know in the comments what your favorite Star Wars film is.
yeah. I think you know that's the problem with things like this that have been going on for 35 years is that you know
Yeah.
nostalgia plays a huge or what 42 years nostalgia plays a huge part in it. You
Yeah,
know
it does.
it's tough to compare, which is why I don't think anything will pass the original Star Wars for me. I think
Hmm.
it just the feeling I had watching it when I was young, it will trump anything, no matter how you know. It would have to be an exceptionally good movie, I think, to knock it out. Um, and I think that's some of the problem that I think you know people ripping apart the Last Jedi with stuff. I saw a couple of comments about you know editing mistakes and things in the fight scene and that, which you know, I mean, if you go back to the original trilogy, like there's a bunch of things that disappear and stormtroopers banging their head and things like that that happen, but we forgive them
Hmm.
because we grew up with them and it's
Right.
part of awareness. And I think you know when my kids grow up, it's possible that they will feel the same way about this show, same way that people that are you know 18 to 25 now, a lot of them love the prequels because of the ones they saw
Yeah.
when they were a kid. It's hard, and that's why I always say you know name your favorites because trying to pick the best one objectively is too hard. There's
Well, and
no
people would get into fights
yeah
over that.
there's
It's
there's
just
no
no
there's
point.
no way. You know, a lot of people would say that Empire is the best one, and it might be. I don't know. It's hard to say. It is it is definitely great, and it's a lot of people's favorites. I see it's Nick in Virginia's favorite right there. But you got another. Doug says Return of the Jedi, so you got another one there.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, they're all good. Like I said, uh, I would pick at least 8 out of 10 of these movies. If I was on a plane and
Right.
these were on,
Hmm.
it would be the first thing I watched. You know,
No, I
the only,
agree.
I mean, maybe Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. You know, it would be the second thing I watched instead of the first.
Hmm.
But you know, I'd pick all of these over probably 90% of any other movie. So,
Yeah.
um,
At the end of the day, it's still Star Wars, so you're
mhm.
not losing with by watching
Yeah,
any of them.
yeah,
So, but Brian, okay, so we finished watching 10 Star Wars movies. Oh my
whew,
gosh, I
we
can't believe
did.
that this
And
is the last
I
one.
watched a couple of them multiple times. So
I know. And we did have a few people wondering if we could put these out as a podcast. So, like this video, if you would want us to put these out
mhm.
on the Touring Plans podcast, so you guys could listen to these. I don't know if that's something we can even do,
Yeah.
but we will try.
I can
Uh,
definitely pull the audio off. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe in the midst of all our Star Wars blitzing over the next 2 weeks, we'll just dump them all on like at once onto the
for
feed,
some
and
bonus
people can listen
episodes.
if they want, or delete them if they want. You know, or
Yeah,
we'll download them first and then delete them, so we still get
yeah,
the number.
exactly. When you're like, oh my gosh, they're talking too long about one scene. But I mean, exciting news for Brian. I can't believe that this time has actually finally come. But as we mentioned earlier, Brian leaves
I
tomorrow
do.
for Disneyland.
I leave in about yeah 36 hours or no less than that, about 30 hours give or take. I will be in California for the Galaxy's Edge opening on Friday. We will have. I will be putting out. I will definitely have a YouTube video out. Probably late Friday night on Pacific Coast time. So you know, on the East Coast, you might be seeing it
Mhm.
early Saturday morning. But yeah, I'll be in. We our reservation on Friday is from 2 to 6 p.m. West Coast time. So right
Mhm.
after that, I'm going straight back to my hotel and editing video, whatever video I have from that day. And then we also will be in there several times over the weekend. So it will not be the only video. There will be several. There will probably be details on basically everything I can point a camera at in there.
Yeah.
Um, we will also have all of our social media channels will be
Mhm.
nothing but Galaxy's Edge for a little while. So follow our Instagram is at Touring Plans, our YouTube channel, which you have found already. Twitter is at Touring Plans. Our blog, which is or touringplans.com/blog. Um, we will have just tons and tons of little articles. We
Yeah.
have this whole system set up where the team that is going to be in Disneyland, which is myself, Len Testa, Guy Selga, um, we um, we will be sending reviews and photos and videos back to Angela and a couple other bloggers that will be writing up short posts and putting up Instagram stories and everything for
Hmm.
us. So we will have a ton of that. Jeff asked how many 4-hour blocks do you get? You get one per hotel reservation, and then you could make if you didn't have a hotel reservation, you could go online on, I think, beginning of May and make them. They're all gone now, but we managed to get a couple more in there. So that's why we have multiples in there. So which is good because we are planning on trying every food item from every place. Probably at least
Drinks,
most of the
17
drinks.
alcoholic drinks.
Oga's Cantina carries 17 alcoholic drinks plus several non-alcoholic drinks. And you only get an hour per round in there. So that might depend on how many people we are in there with that can help us try drinks on whether we can get to all of those, because that's a lot. But we will definitely try all the food items. We're going to look through all the merchandise. We're going to ride Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run as much as possible. So
Yep.
it'll be
Yeah.
it'll be a good time.
Yeah, we've been working hard behind the scenes, getting everything prepped and ready for you. I offered to help Brian with video, so we might have like a Dropbox folder, so we'll be able to get them out for you as quickly as we can. And I just updated the description box of this video, so all of our social media handles, as well as the blog, is all linked below. So make sure you follow us there because we will have everything there. We'll have tons of Instagram
Oh yeah.
stories, tons of Twitter things. Facebook, we'll have all of the blog posts there. So make sure you follow us there.
Oh yes,
We are,
yeah. There will be a lot.
it's like the
you
Star
won't
Wars
hurt for
apocalypse.
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge coverage. That is for sure.
No.
Yeah, and of course, like we do at Touring Plans, we'll be paying a lot of attention to how the operations work for everything and how they're
Yep.
handling the crowds, how the crowds look in the rest of Disneyland. If
Hmm.
you're not in Galaxy's Edge, how crowded is it elsewhere? How crowded is California Adventure? Because I'll definitely be heading over there to ride Original Soarin' at least once. Um, so we'll have all of that stuff as part of our coverage. So it won't just be Star Wars. It'll also
Hmm.
be kind of how a Disneyland Resort is reacting to Star Wars, which hopefully will be a pretty good indication of how Disney World will handle Star Wars when that opens as well.
Well, two things, Brian. How long are you going to be there in total? And what are you most excited for?
I am. It's only 4 days I'm there. I
Mhm.
come back Sunday night. Um, and one of those days I won't be able to get in Galaxy's Edge. It will be Thursday, which is good because I will also have lots and lots of other Disneyland videos, land tours and top fives and things from
Mhm.
Disneyland that you'll be seeing. Um, I mean, I mean, I'm just excited for all of Galaxy's Edge. Honestly, I think it's got to be piloting the Millennium Falcon though. I'm very, very excited to do that. Oga's Cantina is
Oh,
probably second on that list, which I think is unfortunately not uncommon because I think those are the two that are also going to have the longest lines to do. So
yeah.
we're going to have to really plan that one out. But um,
Well, if you're still watching, let us know in the comments what you specifically want us to cover, whether that's certain things like
yeah,
that we do here at Touring Plans, like,
yeah,
I don't
especially
know, how
strategic
best to use a
things.
plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of we're definitely going to look for a lot of that stuff. Yeah, Louise asked what am I
Yeah.
going to buy? I probably won't really buy a ton. If my
Mhm.
kids were more into Star Wars, then I would buy stuff for them, but they're not huge Star Wars fans. My son,
Mhm.
knows most of the characters. He's seen a couple of them, but um, so I probably won't buy it. Somebody in our party will be buying a handmade lightsaber from Savi's workshop just so we can go
Mhm.
through the process.
Yep.
I don't know who that is, honestly. It's more
Have
because
them get video if they can.
that's what that's kind of I'm we might be paying for someone else's lightsaber just so I can go in with them because only two people are allowed in. The
Ooh, and then you
person
can
doing
film
it,
it.
and then I can film it. Hopefully they let us film in there.
Yeah.
And
Good.
and if not, I'll just be wearing my GoPro like this,
Ooh, good. I
like
was gonna ask
um,
what you're filming with. You're filming with your GoPro. Good.
well,
Awesome.
I have my normal camera that I use, and then I also have my GoPro with my where is it? There it is. With my wrist rig, so I can shoot, raw on some. I'm gonna, I just got this. So I'm gonna start doing some on ride footage of rides that we don't have currently, like
Yeah.
Incredicoaster and stuff that are too hard to film.
Perfect.
They won't let you
Yeah.
hold a camera, so I'm gonna strap
Awesome.
that to my wrist and take. So if I have to, I'll just wear that and be like, no, it's off. I swear.
Yeah. No.
But and then probably get sued by Disney for putting it on YouTube.
Mm.
Yeah, um, so we're definitely gonna do that. So I may end up coming home with a lightsaber. I'm kind of hoping if they do, they ship it to my house because I don't want to carry it on the plane.
Yeah, I know that'd be a
But
big
but we'll see. And Ectoplasmic has an annual pass to Disneyland. So yeah, if you see me, I will be wearing my maroon shirt with the T on it. So
yeah.
if you see me, absolutely come say hi.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
can argue more about the Last Jedi. No, I'm kidding. I really don't want to do that.
Let's just enjoy Star Wars
Yes,
together.
yes. We will like the movies we like, and everybody will be happy, and we'll
Exactly.
enjoy Galaxy's Edge hopefully. So
Hmm.
everything I've heard from the cast members that have been in there have been really, really positive. They all say it's on par with, the best lands, the Pandoras and the Diagon Alleys and that. So I hope so. I really do.
Excellent. All right. I think we finished
I think we
everything.
did. Yeah. Thank you all so much for sticking around for a
Mhm.
supersized video here. And thank you very much for sticking around for 10 episodes of this. I saw somebody up here mentioned that Jeff said, asked if the 22 Marvel movies were next. That is a possibility that it will be a while before we get to that.
Yes.
And that one
We'll take a break
we will
first.
definitely space out more than we had to do this one. So
Yeah.
this
We
was a
need a
little
break
tiring by
first.
the end.
I know. We're like
So
every Friday.
especially because
Yeah.
most of the movies I watched in chunks, so it would take me like 4 days
Hmm.
to watch each one.
I
But
know.
we really appreciate it, everyone. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, and
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
may the force be with you.
Ooh, good ending. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.